Have you ever felt the silence after someone leaves, louder than all the words they once spoke? It's strange, isn't it? How a name can disappear from your phone, how conversations stop mid-sentence, how suddenly you become a ghost in someone's life, someone who once swore you were unforgettable. We tell ourselves we've moved on, that silence is freedom, that their absence no longer matters. But sometimes, in the hush of midnight, regret creeps like shadows across the mind. Not just theirs, but ours. There's a cruel paradox in being left behind. We ache to be forgotten, yet crave to be the wound that never quite heals, the echo that lingers long after we're gone. We want them to regret us, to remember the softness of our voice, the storm in our laughter, the quiet certainty in our presence. Not because we need them back, but because we want the story to end with this truth. Losing me was a mistake you'll feel in every silent room. But let's be honest, most people handle heartbreak the same way. Loud declarations, cryptic posts, rage disguised as independence. We overshare. We scream our pain into the void, hoping the echo finds its way back to the one who left. Yet the wise know there's another way, a quieter way, a path where your silence speaks volumes, and your transformation is so profound that the mere memory of you becomes a weight on their chest. Because sometimes, silence is not emptiness, it's a fortress. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." And I've learned that the quietest revenge is becoming someone they can't recognize, someone they can't reach, someone they can't forget. I remember, years ago, I was ghosted by someone who said they loved me. No goodbye, no closure, just silence, vast and suffocating. At first, I wanted answers. I wanted to text them paragraphs of my worth. I wanted to remind them who I was and what they'd thrown away. But then, something shifted. I stopped speaking, stopped explaining, stopped trying to force them to remember. Instead, I let the silence become my shield. I rebuilt myself in quiet corridors, out of sight, out of reach. Months passed, no posts, no stories, just me, learning to breathe without needing to be seen. Then one night, I saw their name watching my story, a silent view, no message, no "I'm sorry." But I didn't need words, because I realized my absence had become a presence in their mind. They say silence is golden, but in moments like that, silence feels like vengeance wrapped in velvet, soft, yet devastating. You see, regret is not loud. It's quiet. It festers in sleepless hours. It hides in the eyes that linger too long on photos. It whispers in every scroll through old conversations. And the most haunting thing you can become is the one they think about, but never dare to reach for again. This isn't about revenge, not the kind painted in fiery posts or calculated appearances. This is about becoming so untouchable, so quietly transformed, that the mere thought of you burns a question into their mind. How did I ever let them go? Because that is true power, quiet power, stoic power. Sometime, the loudest lesson you'll ever teach is your silence. So before we begin, I want you to pause for a moment. Ask yourself, who do you secretly wish would regret losing you? This week, say nothing, post nothing. Let curiosity become your messenger. And if you vanish today, whose mind would you echo in? Because the first way begins with learning to build walls no rumor can breach. Some people believe strength is loud, that it roars, commands, dominates every room. They think power comes from the sharpness of your words, the fire in your stare, the volume of your presence. But the truth is quieter, the kind of strength that shakes people to their core. is the one that speaks nothing, yet changes everything. I've seen it in boardrooms, in friendships, in love. People try to bait you into battles you don't owe them. They want you rattled. They want your voice raised, your defenses lowered, your secrets spilled in moments of rage. But the wise know that not every blow requires a strike in return. Sometimes, the most dangerous warrior is the one who doesn't swing at all. Imagine this: a storm raging outside, wind screaming, rain lashing the walls. Inside, there's a fortress, heavy stone, thick gates, silent, still. While chaos batters its walls, the fortress stands untouched. And the world outside no matter how fierce the storm, it cannot breach those walls. That is you. Your silence becomes your fortress. Your calm becomes stone walls. Your restraint, the locked gates. I once worked with someone who tried to destroy my reputation. I heard whispers in corridors, saw looks cast in meetings, felt ice in rooms where once there was warmth. Every instinct screamed at me to defend myself, to speak my truth, to expose them. But a quiet voice inside whispered, "Let the fortress speak for you." So I said, nothing. I kept working, kept delivering results, kept walking the halls with my chin raised and my words measured. And in time, the very people who whispered about me grew suspicious of the one who planted the seeds, because rumor is a shadow and silence exposes the light. Months later, the person left the company in disgrace. No one even remembered their accusations. But people still remember me, not because I shouted, but because I didn't have to. Your silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. It's a fortress built brick by brick from the discipline to stay unmoved. Some will see you're quiet and think they've won. Let them. Let them believe you're small because you don't shout. Let them mistake your stillness for surrender. Because the truth is, silence forces people to face themselves. It becomes a mirror reflecting their intentions, a fortress that makes them wonder what lies beyond your walls. And here's what's beautiful. The quieter you become, the more they fill the silence with their own projections. They'll imagine your thoughts, your feelings, your judgments, and that mystery will haunt them longer than any words ever could. Because nothing is more terrifying than a fortress whose gates stay closed. People often think silence is passive. They're wrong. Silence is active. It listens. It observes. It gathers information while others reveal their entire hand. When you become a fortress, you don't just protect your secrets. You control the entire battlefield, because no one can fight a wall that refuses to swing back. Think of the person who walks away from an argument without a single word, who lets the others scream, accuse, rage, while they simply leave the room, head held high. That is quiet power. The fortress doesn't need to prove itself. Its very existence is proof. I remember another time, I found out someone I cared about was speaking behind my back, saying things that weren't true, painting me as cold, detached, uncaring. Part of me burned to defend myself, to call them out publicly, to reveal the truth. But I remembered this. Some fires are meant to die in silence. So I stayed silent. And months later, those same people came to me and said, "I don't know what happened, but you always stayed the same." I respect that. Let them underestimate you. Let them gossip, because your fortress is built on stillness, on refusing to explain your worth to those who doubt it. And one day, the very ones who spread your name in rumors will find themselves speaking of your silence instead. They'll say, "I tried to get a rise out of him, but he never took the bait." They'll say, "She stayed silent, and somehow that was scarier than any words." They'll say, "I regret how I treated them, because they never lowered themselves to my level." And that's when you'll know the fortress you built wasn't just walls for protection, it was a monument to your own quiet power. Marcus Aurelius said, The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. Your fortress ensures that. Your silence becomes a sanctuary no storm can breach. Your presence becomes stone, immovable, while others waste themselves in noise. And that is how you become the one they regret letting go. So I want you to pause right now. Take a deep breath. Ask yourself, where in your life do you need to become a fortress? Where have you been speaking too much, giving explanations to people who don't deserve them, reacting when you could have simply stood still? This week, try silence. When someone provokes you, say nothing. Let your eyes speak. Let your quiet be your answer. And ask yourself, if you vanished today, whose mind would be left echoing with questions they'll never get to ask? Because your silence builds walls no rumor can breach. Most people believe that to prove you've changed, you have to announce it, that you need to post about it, speak about it, show it off in carefully curated snapshots for the world to applaud. But the truth is, the most powerful transformations happen in silence, because the quietest evolutions are the ones no one sees coming. There's something unsettling about a person who disappears for a while, only to return different, stronger, calmer, sharper. People can't categorize you anymore. The labels they once used fall away, useless. And that confusion is the beginning of regret. Because regret doesn't always start with missing who you were. Sometimes it begins with realizing they no longer know who you are. When someone leaves you, they carry an image of you in their mind, a snapshot frozen in time. They expect you to remain the same person they walked away from. Same insecurities, same habits, same wounds. They think your story stopped when they closed the door. But the wise know your story never stops. It shifts, it deepens, it becomes something unrecognizable. I've seen this happen. Years ago, I knew a man who lost his job and his relationship in the same month. He vanished from social media, stopped going to the same bars, stopped responding to old friends who only want to gossip. People whispered that he'd broken, that he was hiding in shame. But when he returned, he was nothing like the man they remembered. He'd started his own company, moved cities. His voice was calmer, his eyes clearer. The people who left him now watched him from the sidelines, and every silent glimpse they took was a silent confession. I don't know this man anymore, and I might have made a mistake letting him go. He never announced his rebirth. He simply became it. That's the essence of rewriting your identity quietly. You let your absence become the canvas, and your silence becomes the brush. It's the difference between posting daily gym photos and showing up one day transformed, between dropping cryptic quotes about glowing up and letting your entire existence radiate a different energy. When you disappear for a while, people will make assumptions. They'll invent stories to fill the gaps. Let them, because while they're busy speculating, you're busy rebuilding. Inside silent corridors, you shed old skins. You bury outdated versions of yourself. You walk through fire alone, and the world never sees the flames, only the ash you rise from. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." You don't owe the world explanations for your evolution. You don't need to announce your healing, or becoming stronger, or moving on. The most potent growth happens when no one is watching. Because the moment you reveal your every step, you invite interference, opinions, doubt, distraction. The wise protect their metamorphosis with silence. Imagine this. Someone ghosted you, left you believing you were not enough. Months pass, you say nothing. No cryptic posts, no subtweets, no dramatic declarations. Then one day, you appear at an event, your energy different, your presence sharper. You've become someone else. And in that silent reveal, they feel it, the regret. Because silence makes them wonder, what happened behind those closed doors? What secrets did your solitude teach you? You become a mystery, and nothing haunts people like a mystery they can't solve. The quiet rewriting of your identity is also protection. It shields you from those who would sabotage your journey, from those who would drag you back into old patterns, from those who can't stand the thought of you becoming someone they can no longer define. There's another truth. When people leave you, they often hold on to a sense of superiority. They believe they've outgrown you, that they're moving on to better things. But when you return as someone reborn, that belief shatters, and in the ruins of their certainty, regret grows like ivy along the silent walls of your fortress. Because your silence didn't mean you were broken, it meant you were building. I remember times in my own life when I vanished, deleted every photo, stopped posting, stopped explaining. It wasn't because I was hiding, it was because I was becoming. And when I returned, people didn't know how to speak to me because the old language no longer fit. Your transformation isn't for their validation, it's for your liberation. One of the most dangerous myths is that if people don't see your progress, it doesn't exist. That's a lie. Growth is real even if unseen. Progress matters even if unspoken. The wisest transformations leave no trail of breadcrumbs for the curious. Because true change doesn't seek applause, it simply happens. And one day, those who left you will see you standing in a room, eyes glowing with calm certainty. And they'll remember the person they thought they left behind. And in that moment, they'll realize they never knew you at all. And that is the sweetest, quietest form of revenge. So ask yourself, who still thinks they know the old you? Who holds a version of you in their mind that no longer exists? This week, vanish for a while. Stop posting. Stop explaining. Let your silence become the forge where a new you is cast. And ask yourself, when you return, will they recognize you? Or will they regret letting go of someone who was always destined to become untouchable? Most people believe that the story of who they are belongs to the world, that they owe explanations, justifications, a timeline of every scar and triumph laid bare for others to inspect and judge. But the truth is, your story belongs to you, no one else. And silence is the gatekeeper of your narrative. There's a dangerous temptation when pain strikes, to spill every detail, to text paragraphs, to post cryptic messages, to pour your heartbreak into captions, hoping someone, somewhere, will understand and send the validation you're starving for. But the wise know that vulnerability offered to the wrong audience becomes ammunition. The words you speak in pain become weapons used against you in silence. Because the more you explain, the more you hand your story to people who will twist it for their own purposes. Imagine a courtroom where you're on trial, except there's no judge, no jury, only the crowd, and every word you speak becomes evidence. Every explanation becomes fuel for speculation. Every attempt to defend yourself makes you look guilty in the eyes of those who came not to understand, but to feast on the spectacle. The wise refuse to play that game, because silence doesn't just protect secrets, it reclaims power. I've seen people try to force others into conversations they have no right to demand. Why did you break up? What really happened between you two? Tell me the truth. And sometimes, the greatest rebellion is to look them in the eyes and say, nothing. Because the moment you explain, you step into a trap. You allow the other person to shape the narrative with your own words. And once they possess your truth, they can frame it any way they choose. When you hold your silence, you force people to fill in the gaps with their own imagination. And imagination is far more haunting than reality. Your silence becomes an echo chamber in their mind, a place where possibilities swirl, each more tantalizing and terrifying than the last. There's an eerie power in mystery, a fortress built of words unspoken. And it's that fortress that makes people regret letting you go. Because they're left wondering, did I ever truly know them? Did I underestimate what they're capable of becoming? What secrets do they hold now, behind those quiet eyes? I once knew a woman whose partner left her abruptly. He spread rumors, painted her as unstable. Friends turned away. Family questioned her story. The noise around her grew deafening. And though every part of her wanted to scream the truth, she chose silence. Months later, the man who left her was exposed for things far worse than she ever hinted at. The friends who doubted her came crawling back, ashamed, and she had never uttered a word. Her silence spoke louder than any defense ever could, because sometimes the fortress you build isn't to keep others out, but to keep your own peace in. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Not everyone deserves your truth. Not everyone has earned the right to your scars. You don't owe anyone an explanation for your choices, your grief, your healing. There's a quiet power in letting people talk while you say nothing, because while they're busy filling the air with opinions, you're living in a fortress of calm. And here's the paradox. The less you say, the more powerful your silence becomes. Because the world fears what it cannot define. Let them invent stories. Let them assume. Let them gossip. You owe them nothing. I remember a time when people were spreading lies about me. Stories that were half true, half invented, spun to fit their own agendas. Friends asked me to set the record straight, to speak up, to defend myself publicly, but I stayed silent. I let time reveal what words could not. Eventually, the truth surfaced. The people who doubted me apologized, and those who tried to stain my name lost their own credibility. Because rumors fade, silence remains. Sometimes the best revenge is not proving them wrong, but letting them wonder. When someone leaves you, they expect your story to stay stagnant. They think they've closed the book. But when you refuse to narrate the next chapter, they're left haunted by the pages they'll never read. They'll scroll through your photos, analyzing your eyes for clues. They'll listen to your voice, searching for cracks in the calm. And every time they remember how little they know now, the regret deepens. Your silence forces them to confront this reality. I lost access to their story, and maybe I never really knew them at all. That is how you master narrative control. So ask yourself, who do you keep explaining yourself to? Who doesn't deserve your truth? This week, when someone demands answers you don't owe them, say nothing. Let your silence become your fortress, and ask yourself, if you vanished today, what story would they tell about you? And how much of it would simply be echoes, invented in the dark? Some people think standards are words you speak, lines you draw with sentences that begin with, "I expect," or "I will not tolerate." But the truth is, the strongest standards are silent. They're not announced, they're simply enforced. Because boundaries whispered are easily ignored, but boundaries lived become walls no one dares to breach. There's a power in silence that words can't touch. Because the moment you start explaining your standards, you open the door for negotiation. People will test you, push you, try to find the soft spots where your resolve wavers. But when you live your standards, without ever having to speak them, you become untouchable. I've seen this play out in so many parts of life. In relationships, friendships, work. Imagine a man in an office who quietly leaves a meeting when the conversation turns toxic. He doesn't roll his eyes. He doesn't slam his laptop shut. He just stands, gathers his notes, and walks out. The room goes silent. People shift in their chairs. And even if no one speaks it aloud, everyone feels it. A line was crossed. Or picture a woman who notices a coworker subtly mocking her ideas. Instead of arguing, she begins leaving his emails unanswered, stops inviting him into key conversations, stops laughing at his sarcastic jokes. She never confronts him. She just withdraws. And suddenly he finds himself outside circles he once thought he controlled. That's silent standards, because your presence is valuable, and your absence is a price they pay. There's an elegance in quiet exits, a soft cruelty in simply disappearing. You don't argue. You don't beg. You don't give them the satisfaction of watching you unravel. You just leave. And people remember that. Because while noise fades, absence lingers. Marcus Aurelius said, "Never esteem anything as of advantage to you that will make you break your word or lose your self-respect. When you walk away in silence, you're protecting more than your pride. You're guarding your self-respect. Because staying silent doesn't mean you're weak. It means you've decided certain conversations are beneath you." I've seen it happen between friends. A group of people starts gossiping about someone who isn't there. One friend, uncomfortable, grows quiet. She doesn't laugh, doesn't contribute. Eventually, she stands up and leaves. No dramatic speech, no moral lecture, just silence. And suddenly, the gossipers feel exposed because her silence has held up a mirror to their ugliness. Or think of family. Holidays are notorious in the US for bringing old tensions to the surface. An uncle starts prodding at your life choices, your career, your relationship status, waiting for you to squirm, to justify yourself. Instead, you simply say, "I'm going to step outside for some air." And you do, quietly. The conversation dies in your absence, and the lesson is delivered without a single word. Because your silence sets the price. People can guess your standards when you speak them, but they feel your standards when you enforce them. When you exit a conversation mid-insult, that's a silent standard. When you unfollow someone who disrespects you repeatedly, that's a silent standard. When you refuse to explain your choices to those who gossip, that's a silent standard. You're not punishing them, you're simply removing yourself. And that removal speaks volumes. The beautiful thing about silent standards is that they don't announce themselves with threats. There's no, "If you do this again, I'll leave." There's just departure. And the uncertainty it leaves behind is more potent than any threat ever could be. Because now they're left wondering, what did I say that crossed the line? Can I fix this? Will they ever come back? And in that silence, regret grows. I remember someone I once worked with who thought my silence meant indifference. He spread rumors, tried to undermine me in meetings. One day he publicly challenged me, expecting me to fight back. Instead, I looked him in the eyes, collected my papers, and left the room. I didn't defend myself, didn't explain to others why I left. Over the next few weeks, people began to notice how he kept trying to provoke me, but I never gave him the energy. Eventually, he became the odd man out. His power shrank in the quiet space I left behind. My silence spoke louder than any accusation I could have made. Because silent standards aren't about vengeance. They're about self-respect. When people know you'll quietly remove yourself from anything that disrespects your peace, they handle you differently. They lower their tone. They choose their words more carefully. They think twice before crossing you. Because the cost of your absence is too high. And that is how you become unforgettable. Not through drama, but through quiet standards that say, without saying, "You cannot afford to lose me again." So ask yourself, where have you been speaking your boundaries, but not living them? This week, let your silence speak. Walk away quietly from one situation where you'd normally argue. See what happens when you say nothing, and simply remove your presence. And ask yourself, whose life would your quiet absence disrupt the most, and why? Most people believe revenge is loud, a grand display, a speech, a dramatic exit, a social media post designed to show the world you've moved on, stronger, happier, untouchable. But true revenge is quiet. It's invisible. It happens inside you, while the outside world has no idea the fire has been extinguished. Emotional mastery is the kind of revenge no one sees coming, because nothing haunts those who wronged you like realizing you feel nothing for them anymore. They want you triggered, reacting, explaining. They want to know they still live rent-free in your mind. But the wise know The ultimate power is non-reactivity, the ability to look at chaos and remain calm. There's a reason Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." People will test you. They'll poke at your insecurities. They'll say cruel things waiting to see you crumble, because your reaction feeds their ego. It assures them they still have influence over your spirit. But when you refuse to react, when your eyes remain steady, when your voice stays low, you become something they can't control. And that terrifies them. Imagine being in an argument. Someone raises their voice, hurls insults, calls you names meant to cut deep. The entire room stiffens, waiting for your explosion. Instead, you stand silent, or you softly say, "I hope you find peace," and walk away. That's quiet revenge, because silence forces them to sit with their own ugliness. It shines a harsh light on their behavior, while you remain untouched. When you stay calm, you flip the narrative. You're no longer the victim. You become the observer, the one who watches chaos burn from the safety of your own inner fortress. I remember a time in college. A friend betrayed me, shared private things I'd trusted them with. Everyone waited for me to blast them on social media, to gather a crowd, to make a scene. Instead, I said nothing. I continued my life, kept my circle tight, stayed focused. Months later, the friend tried to reconcile. They admitted they expected me to come for them. When I didn't, they felt something worse than anger. They felt invisible, unimportant, because nothing hurts a person like realizing they're no longer significant enough to disrupt your peace. Non-reactivity is not indifference. It's discipline. It's the decision that not everyone deserves access to your emotions. People confuse silence for weakness, but true silence is chosen, not forced. It's the conscious refusal to give away your emotional energy. Because every reaction costs you. Every outburst depletes your power. You'll find people who thrive on drama. They create storms and then accuse you of thunder. They manufacture chaos and then pretend they're merely responding to your crazy energy. When you remain calm, you reveal the truth. The storm was always inside them, not you. There's a subtle cruelty in emotional mastery, because while they spiral, you're at peace. While they rant, you're building. While they obsess, you're evolving. Imagine your ex lurking on your Instagram, hoping for signs that you're miserable, waiting for cryptic quotes. Instead, they find nothing. No drama, no posts about heartbreak, just quiet absence. That emptiness is louder than any statement you could ever make, because your silence becomes a mirror, and people rarely like the reflection staring back. Some will say, "But don't you need closure? Don't you need to speak your truth?" The wise know that closure is an inside job. You can speak your truth, but only to those worthy of it, not to the people who betrayed it. You owe explanations to no one who abused your trust. There's another reason to master your emotions. It preserves your dignity. People remember your last reaction. If you scream, cry, hurl insults, that becomes your legacy. But if you remain calm, they're left haunted by what you didn't say. I once heard someone say, "The most powerful statement is no statement." And I've learned that's true, because you become unforgettable when you stay unshaken. Marcus Aurelius also wrote, "The best answer to anger is silence." Because silence is not emptiness, it's strategy. It's how you hold power without ever raising your voice. So ask yourself, who in your life keeps trying to provoke you because they still believe they have the power to disturb your peace? This week, choose silence. When someone attempts to drag you into chaos, pause, breathe, and simply walk away and ask yourself, whose mind would shatter the most if they realized you've stopped feeling anything for them at all? In the world we live in today, silence isn't just measured in words spoken, it's measured in what you choose to share or not share online. Because make no mistake, the digital world is the new stage. It's where people perform, where they reveal their triumphs, hide their wounds, and sometimes display their heartbreak disguised as empowerment. But the wise know that silence in the digital space is one of the most haunting forms of power. Imagine this. You and someone once close part ways. Maybe they left you. Maybe you chose distance. Either way, they expect to see the typical fallout. Cryptic posts, angry captions, emotional reels, a timeline littered with subtle jabs and attempts to prove you're thriving. But when they look for you online, they find stillness. No dramatic posts, no thirst traps, no quotes screaming how much stronger you've become. Just quiet. And that quiet becomes a thunder they can't escape. Because digital silence makes them wonder, are they really over me? Or are they hiding something greater? Have they moved on? Are they happier than ever and just don't need to prove it to anyone? This is algorithm psychology. In the absence of information, the mind fills the void. People project their fears into your silence, and nothing haunts someone who left you, like not knowing what's happening behind the closed doors of your quiet digital fortress. There's a term floating around online called ghost viewing. It means people who block you or stop talking to you still secretly check your profile. They might not like your posts, they might not comment, but they're there, lurking, watching, and your quiet presence tortures them more than any public declaration ever could. Because if you posted daily about how well you're doing, they could dismiss it as performance. But silence leaves them questioning whether you've transcended the need for an audience altogether. Years ago, I knew someone who went through a brutal breakup. Her ex expected the usual meltdown, emotional posts, shared Spotify playlists suddenly scrubbed clean, selfies with forced smiles. But she did the opposite. She didn't delete a single photo, didn't write a single cryptic caption. Her feed went silent for months. And when she returned, she posted a simple photo of her standing on a mountain cliff at sunrise. No caption, no explanation. That single photo carried more weight than 1,000 words. It whispered, "I have become someone else, someone you no longer have access to." Your quiet digital presence says, "My life is bigger than this app." It's the art of not performing, the courage to live beyond the feed. Because the people who overshare every detail of their healing often remain trapped in the performance. But those who heal quietly emerge truly free. The quiet digital presence doesn't mean you vanish forever. It means you curate what deserves to be seen. You don't let pain dictate your post. You don't let heartbreak shape your online persona. You become intentional. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The tranquility that comes when you stop caring what they say, or think, or do." Your silence online is the modern application of that Stoic wisdom. It's telling the world, you no longer get access to my chaos or my rebirth. Because digital presence isn't just about what you show, it's about what you choose to protect. People might call you mysterious or cold. Let them, because mystery is a fortress, and curiosity is the quiet revenge. Your absence on social media becomes the place where people come looking for answers, and finding none, they stay haunted. I've experienced it myself. I once deleted every social app for 6 months. No posts, no likes, no comments. Some people took it as weakness, as hiding. But when I returned, the silence had done its work. The people who'd once dismissed me suddenly realized they'd missed an entire chapter of my evolution. And that gap in their knowledge became the gap where regret grew. Because they realized they'd lost the privilege of witnessing who I'd become. Quiet digital presence is the art of building your fortress online. You post nothing, yet your silence echoes everywhere. And here's the truth. In today's world, nothing is louder than the absence of noise. So ask yourself, what part of your life are you broadcasting? that should be sacred instead. This week, try digital silence. Don't post about your feelings. Don't share your plans. Let your next move be seen only when you choose to reveal it. And ask yourself, if you vanish from every platform today, who would notice first, and who would regret not knowing who you become? One of the deepest prisons we build for ourselves is the need to be understood, because to crave understanding is to hand our peace to other people. It's to say, please see me so I can see myself. But the wise know not everyone deserves that power over your soul. Letting go of the need to be understood is the final act of quiet liberation. It's how you become untouchable. Because the truth is, some people will never understand you, not because you're complicated, but because your growth exposes their stagnation. Your silence threatens their chaos. Your boundaries remind them of the ones they've never built. They'll call you cold, guarded, mysterious, emotionless. But they don't see the truth that behind your quiet eyes is a mind that has chosen freedom over explanation. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are pained by any external thing, it is not this thing that disturbs you, but your own judgment about it. It's your judgment that demands people get you. It's your need for validation that makes you restless. When you let go of the need to be understood, you let go of the chains that keep you performing. Imagine a woman in a relationship who keeps trying to explain why she needs space, why she values silence, why she doesn't want to share every detail of her past trauma. Her partner insists, "I just want to understand you." But over time, she realizes he's not seeking understanding. He's seeking control. He wants to know where to poke, where to question, where to plant seeds of doubt. So she stops explaining. She answers gently, "Not everyone deserves my truth." And the moment she says that, the dynamic shifts. Because once you stop explaining, you reclaim your narrative. I've seen it happen in friendships. Someone asks, "Why are you so distant lately?" But the wise know, sometimes the answer is simply, "Because I'm choosing my peace." Not everyone is owed an explanation for your distance, or your silence, or your transformation. When you let go of being understood, you stop begging the world for permission to exist as you are. Because some people only want to understand you so they can dissect you, so they can find a weakness, or a way back in. But your silence becomes your fortress. When you're quiet, they have nothing to grab onto. No words to twist, no confessions to weaponize. People will accuse you of hiding, of avoiding. Let them. Because the truth is, you're not hiding. You're protecting what's sacred. And not everything sacred is meant to be shared. Think about social media. The modern world pressures us to overshare every part of our journey, to explain our sadness, to justify our solitude, to narrate our glow-up. But imagine vanishing for a year and coming back transformed. Letting people wonder where you went, what you learned, who you became, and never giving them the answers. That mystery is power. I remember years ago, someone asked me why I always kept parts of my life private. They said, "Don't you want people to know the real you?" And I smiled, because the real me belongs to me. And that is freedom. Because the moment you stop craving to be understood, you start living on your own terms. You stop defending your boundaries. You stop proving your worth. You stop explaining your silence. And that drives people mad, because the human mind is addicted to certainty. When someone doesn't explain, the mind invents stories. It fills the gaps with imagination. And often, imagination punishes them more than the truth ever could. That's why letting go of being understood becomes the quiet revenge. Not because you're cruel, but because you've chosen to keep your fortress locked. Marcus Aurelius also said, "Everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact. Everything we see is a perspective, not the truth." Let them keep their opinions. Let them believe their perspective. You know your truth. That's all that matters. So ask yourself, who in your life have you been exhausting yourself trying to explain to? This week, practice holding your silence. When someone demands answers, pause, breathe, and simply say, "Not everyone deserves my story." And ask yourself, if you vanished without a single explanation, whose mind would echo with the loudest questions, and why? There's something haunting about silence. It's the space where truths hide and secrets breathe. And if you've listened this far, then deep inside, you already know power doesn't scream, it whispers. Each of these 7 ways is not just a path to becoming someone they'll regret letting go. It's a blueprint for becoming someone even you might have thought impossible. Because regret is not about the person they left. It's about the version of you that they can no longer touch. A fortress rebuilt in silence. A presence transformed in shadows. A story withheld from curious eyes. Some will say that living like this is lonely. That silence is cold. That mystery is a wall keeping love out. But here's the truth. Mystery isn't a wall. It's a gate that you alone decide who passes through. Because not everyone deserves the same access to you. Not everyone has earned the right to know your fears, your wounds, your quiet victories. When you become comfortable with silence, you discover the real definition of freedom. Freedom is not in proving who you are. It's in no longer caring if they know. Because the people meant to stay in your life will not need constant explanations to understand your worth. They will respect your silence. They will feel your standards, even when they're unspoken. And those who do not will fade away. And let them. Let them fade. Because the ones who left you, the ones who thought they could walk away unscathed, will one day remember moments when your presence felt like certainty, like warmth, like gravity holding their world in place. And when they realize you become someone far beyond their reach, that's when regret sets in. Quiet, relentless, like a storm whispering through locked corridors. They will think back to the sound of your laughter, the softness in your voice, the look in your eyes that said you were still open, still giving. And they'll know they'll never get that version of you again. Because you've become untouchable, not in an arrogant way, but in the way of someone who has chosen inner peace over external approval. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The tranquility that comes when you stop caring what they say, or think, or do. That tranquility is your silent fortress. It's where you rebuild. It's where you protect the sacred parts of you. And one day, when they scroll through your photos, when they remember your name in the hush of midnight, they'll wonder, how did I ever let them go? And they'll find no answer. Because the truth is, some fires are meant to die in silence. And from those ashes, rises someone reborn." So as we end this journey together, I want you to remember this. You owe no one your story. You owe no one your scars. You owe no one the parts of you that you've worked so hard to heal. Your silence is not emptiness, it's a fortress. And sometimes, the loudest lesson you'll ever teach is simply leaving quietly. So before you go, I have a question for you. Who do you secretly wish would regret letting you go? And what version of yourself are you ready to become, so that losing you becomes the echo they hear in every silent room? This week, practice choosing silence where you'd normally speak. Let your absence say what your words never could. And ask yourself, if you vanish today, whose world would tilt from the weight of your quiet disappearance? Remember, Len, you are not defined by who left you. You are defined by who you become in the silence they left behind. And that is how you become unforgettable.